Okay, everybody, welcome to MGF 1107 test review workshop for test 3. And this is facilitated by the Learning Commons. And I'm Noah Schmidt. I'm a math professor in the science and math department. And so this is part 2 of the workshop. And part 1 was yesterday. And so we're going to complete the practice test PowerPoint that we started yesterday. And so we've got, we're going to just do all the examples that we didn't get to yesterday. And this is one that we had yesterday. This requires knowing, you'll have a formula sheet for this test. And so you can refer to the formula sheet for this particular problem. But this one, you're given an Egyptian numeral and asked to write it as a Hindu Arabic numeral, which is just basically our number system. But so let's look at all these symbols and what they mean. Some of you might have them memorized. I actually don't have them memorized. I have to look them up. But it's essentially what you're doing is you just look at the symbols, and each symbol has a certain value, and you add up all the total. If we go to our sheet, we're going to see that, let me see if I can show both at the same time here. I'm going to try. Well, I wouldn't be able to share both at the same time, but I'll tell you what each of the values of each, and you'll have the formula sheet yourself. So the stick figure is basically a million. So let me write these out for everyone. So the stick figures, the person with the stick figure is basically worth 1 million. The tadpoles are worth, you might even have it memorized more than I do. I always have to look it up because I don't do it very often.
100,000.
How much?
100,000.
Or those are 100,000. Okay.
I think.
You might even be able to make this quicker for me. And now the kind of these curve shapes here, I'm not sure what you'd call them. I can refer to that. Easy to tell what you call them when you look at the formula sheet. But, so I'm going to try to get this so that I can see it better. Okay, so that's basically the pointing the. Here, let me bring back the PowerPoint. That's basically the pointing fingers, what you call them, and those are 10,000. And then the spirals are 100. And then the heel bone is 10, and the vertical lines are 1. So let's just figure out how many we've got here. So we got 2 of the stick figures. Those are 2 million. That's 2 million because there's 2 of them. So you just take 2 million. And then there's the tadpoles. There's 3 of them, and each of them are worth 100,000. So that's 300,000. Then there are 2 pointing fingers. Those are worth 10,000, so that's 20,000 added to the total. Then there's the spiral, which is 100, but there's only 1 of them, so that adds 100. And then there's 1 heel bone, which adds 10, and 1 vertical line, which adds 1. And we add all this up. I'll let you all do that. But that's how you just, it's really not with the formula sheet, it's really not something that you do other than just understand that each figure represents a certain value and you add it all up. But look, what do you got? What do you all get when you add all that up?
I got what, 23,201,000.
Yeah, it's basically 23. Well, it's 2,300,000, 300 and actually 20,000.
01.
Zero with a 111.
11.
Yeah, that's your full number right there. But yeah, you can use the calculator to add it up. Otherwise, you just put things in place values. So you can make these place values and put your numbers in the place values. You got to understand place value. Like the ones place has a 1, the tens place has a 1, the hundreds place has a 1. Then you skip the thousands place, so that has a 0. Then you go to the 10,000s place, and that's 2. Then you go to the 100,000s place, that's a 3. And then you go to the millions place, that's a 2. And so then there's the full number. So, but probably the easiest way to do it is just to add it up on your calculator. But you kind of want to write it out this way first so that you know what you're adding. But yeah, so any questions there? So let me show you what you're looking at when you have your formula sheet. I have it too, but I have to share a different screen really quickly. Here's the formula sheet right here with the description of all the, right here, there's the Egyptian numerals, got the Egyptian numeral, and then the description of what they are, and then what their value is in Hindu Arabic numeral, which is our number system. But all right, any questions? Okay. Okay, let's go to the next problem, which we okay, so if we go to the next problem that we didn't do, we did all these yesterday. We didn't do this one. All right, so these you've got, now you're using the table on the formula sheet. We're going to write the given Hindu Arabic numeral as an Egyptian numeral. So this is basically a situation, got the Hindu Arabic numeral and we want to write the Egyptian numeral. So we have to do a little bit of drawing here. The 3 million, I know that one is just drawing a lot of stick figures, but we got 3 of them because they each let me write this again. The stick figures are millions, represent a million, and you have 3 million. See, we have 3 million in our number, so we need to draw 3 stick figures to represent the 3 million. And probably your test, I'm guessing if it's paper test, it'd be multiple choice if you're doing it on paper, but I'm not sure. A lot of you are testing online as well. I know when I taught the class, it was paper. So then we go to 200,000, and the 100,000s is the tadpoles. So we go back to and draw some tadpoles. And we need 2 of them because there's 200,000. That's more like a pointing finger, but there's the tadpoles. They're not very good tadpoles, but those represent 100,000s place, and there's 2 of them. Right there, there's two of them. Now we go to the hundreds. I know the hundreds was the pointing finger, I believe. Yeah, actually the hundreds is the spiral. So the spiral is the hundreds place. So that's these spirals. Those represent 100, and there's 100 and 100 right here, and there's so you need one spiral. And then there's 6 tens, and the tens place is represented by the heel bone. So the heel bone is the tens place. So we got 6 in the tens place. So we need 6 heel bones. There's 6 heel bones, and then there's the vertical lines represent the ones place, and there's two in the ones place, so that's 2 vertical lines, and there's your Egyptian numeral right there. But place value is important to understand this, because let's go through place value with you. For this number, it goes up to the millions place. This is the ones. So anytime this is the ones place, this is the tens place, the hundreds place, this is the thousands place. This is the 10,000s place. It's the 100,000s place. This is the millions place. Now, the thing to note is that, so I drew all this out with all these values here. There's a couple of them that I didn't put on this problem. That would be the 10,000s, which was the 10,000s was the pointing finger. That's the pointing finger. That's the 10,000s place. But you'll have the formula sheet. The thousands place was the I think that's the only one we're missing, is the thousands place. And that was yeah, we got the 100,000. So basically we've got 6 of them listed. So we got the thousands place was the lotus blossom. And that's kind of a stick figure, but it's more drawn this way. That's the lotus blossom. And so those represent 1,000. But basically you just see how many, and you have to put them in the correct place value. So our problem could have been done, if we were looking at all these place values, we could have understood that there was a 3 there. So we had to draw 3 of them with this value. And that's the idea behind it. And then if there was 2 in the 100,000s place, we need 2 of them with that value. So anybody have any questions there? Okay. All right, let's clear out the drawing like I have to on these. All right, there, it did it automatically. All right, so we've already did this one yesterday on the recording. We did this one yesterday. This is where we're going to be picking it up, is right here, and we'll go through the rest of them from here. And the ones from yesterday, again, the recording was sent to your Outlook email, so if you want to view those. But it's the 2 recordings are basically a full practice test where we go over problem by problem. This is a tax problem. This says Jerry is a single man with a gross income of $56,000. He contributed $1,000 to an IRA, itemized deductions of $4,000. How much income tax does he owe? Well, we've got to figure everything out from the start on this one. So the gross income is always your starting point. In this case, our gross income is $56,000. Now then you have to get your adjusted gross income. So the adjusted gross income takes your gross income and then makes adjustments to it. So the only thing that's going to adjust gross income is the 1,000 that's being contributed to an IRA. So we've got to take the 56,000. We got to subtract off the 1,000 being contributed to the IRA, which is 55,000 now, and that's the adjusted gross income. Now to get the taxable income, that's how much you're going to use when you go to the tax table and you start taking percentages for each tax bracket. But the taxable income is basically going to be, you got to make the deductions. And so we're starting out with the adjusted gross income, which is 55,000. We got to subtract off the deductions. Now, one thing you have to consider is itemized. So itemized versus standard deduction. You have to figure out which category that each person is in. Are they married? Are they single? There's 4 categories on the, let me go to the tax sheet. So we got 55,000 of adjusted gross income. I'm going to go ahead and share the tax sheet that we've got. So this person is basically so this person is unmarried, so he's single. And so he's in this category right here, and he's got 55,000 in adjusted gross income. And 4,000 was his itemized deductions. Let's call it ID. That's for itemized deductions were 4,000. And we have to subtract off either his itemized deductions or his standard deductions. His deduction would be 6,300. And the goal is to get as little of taxable income as possible. So if you've got itemized deductions of 4,000 and you've got a standard deduction of 6,300, then basically the person is going to want to take the standard deduction because that's 60 that's going to be taken away from the taxable income. So now you have, after the deductions, you have 49,200 of taxable income. But now he gets an exemption. He's single, so he didn't have any dependents. So he's basically got an exemption of 4,050 per person, and it's just himself. So that's 4,050 that's going to be taken off for his exemptions. And that's basically going to give him a taxable income of 45,150. And so that's his taxable income. Now, at this point, you can start to calculate his income tax owed. So here's the tax table. His income falls in this interval right here. That's between those two numbers, and that's taxed. Anything in that area is taxed at 25%. So you take his income, which is 45,150, subtract off the upper end of the previous interval, which is 37,650. So subtract off the upper end of that previous interval, which is 37,650, and that's going to be taxed at 0.25. So multiplied by, so we're going to put a multiplication symbol by 0.25, and that'll give us a certain total. Then anything from the 10% bracket, which is 9275, up to the upper end of the 15% bracket is going to be taxed at 15%. So now we go from the upper end of the 15% bracket, which is 37,650, subtract off the upper end of the 10% bracket, which is 9275. And that's going to be taxed at 15%, which is going to multiply by 0.15. And so there's that total. And then last, everything up to 9275 is taxed at 10%. So that's going to be 9275 times 0.1. And that's going to be the total there. See, the idea is that it's not all of his money being taxed at the same percentage. It's just his money, his amount falls in a certain tax bracket. And so anything in a certain range of value of his certain amount of his money is taxed at each percentage. And it'll give you a total at the end. So let me see what you get when you do 45,150 minus 37,650 times 0.25. Let me see what you get. You want to make sure you put the parentheses around those though. This is what I got there was 1875. So that's that total. We're going to add up to all these at the end. Then the next calculation is the 37,650 subtract off 9275. And that's going to get multiplied by 0.15, which is 4256.25 is that total. There's that total there. And then last is the 9275 times 0.1. And that's going to be 927.5. And so that's that total. And these are all going to add up together. And we'll see what we get when we do all that. But that'll be the total amount of tax owed. And that looks like it's 7,058.75 would be the total tax owed there. So that one was all the way through. We had to go from the gross income to adjusted gross income to the taxable income and then calculating the income tax from the bracket he's in. So any questions there? Let me go back to the original problem. So the person that just got in can see what the original problem was. But this is the answer. You can, again, the recording will be sent out after the. So we've got, this was the original problem right here that we just calculated. His taxable income was basically, this is how much his taxable income was. This was his taxable income, and then we just used the tax table to calculate his income tax owed. All right, anybody have any questions? Sometimes they give you the taxable income and you go from the taxable income to the end, but this one we had to go from the gross income all the way through the whole tax problems. The next problem is if I can get to it. We're going from converting from base 2 to base 10. So we haven't done one. Yesterday we did base 10 to base 2, but we didn't go from base 2 to base 10. So let's go through this problem here. where we're going from base 2. This is a number in base 2, and we're going to base 10. So basically, this is going to be 1,000 or 100,101. Now I'm going to go ahead and put boxes around each of these digits. We got to identify their place value in base 2. Now, what's the value of the first digit in base 2? It's basically 2 to the 0 power. It's the ones place. Just like with 10, it's 10 to the 0 power, which is the ones place. This is the ones place. And then, so that's just going to be a value of 1 there. Now, the next, these exponents are just going up by 1. And base 10, it's basically 10 to the 0, 10 to the first, 10 to the second, 10 to the third. That's how place values generated in base 10. In base 2, it's 2 to the 0, now 2 to the 1, 2 to the 2, 2 to the 3, 2 to the 4, 2 to the 5th. The exponents are just going up by 1 each time. And now we want to calculate what these values are. Well, 2 to the first is 2, 2 to the second is 4, 2 to the third is 8, 2 to the fourth is 16, 2 to the fifth is 32. Now, what ends up happening is the value of the place value gets multiplied by the digit in the place value. So we'll start with 32. 32 is going to multiply by 1 because there's a 1 in its place value. So now you have 32 times 1, and this is just going to give us a running total. Now 16 will multiply by 0, but we don't need to write that. 8 will multiply by 0. We don't need to write that because that's just 0. 4 will multiply by 1, so that's going to add to our total. The 4 here is going to multiply by its place value. And that's going to be 4 times 1. And then 2 will multiply by 0, but that doesn't need to be written. And then 1 can be multiplied by 1, so that ends up being 1 times 1. And we're going to get a total here. I got something in the chat. 37, that's correct. And because 32 times 1 is 32, 34 times 1 is 4, 1 times 1 is 1. When we add all that together, we get 37. Yeah. So it's a lot easier to go base 2 than when you start getting into bases like excuse me, base 3, base 4, base 6, those end up being a little bit trickier, but numbers can be any number of things. But base 2 that's the idea, going from base 2 to base 10 there on this problem. So does anybody have any questions?
I do, Professor
Yes.
Noah.
Uh-huh.
I have a question because I ran into a problem where it wanted me to convert not the part that says 18, but it wanted me to convert that one's, oh, I guess that's what you did. It wanted me to convert that.
Was it base 2?
Yeah, it was base 2, but it wanted you to convert those bigger numbers back to a smaller number. So I guess that's.
Oh, yeah. So you were going from base 10 to base 2.
Right.
Right. Yeah, there's an example like that. It's on the recording. Let me show you which one it was, though. It was like one of the last ones on it, but let me show you which one it was.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So it's the recording. We did one of those yesterday in part 1, but let me show you which one it was. It was let me find it. I think it was problem 15 right here. This is this one. Convert 73 in base 10 to a base 2 numeral. But you're just kind of going, let me just hit on the main points of this without going through the whole problem since you have the recording. But what you're looking for when you're doing this is basically you got to still know your place value: 2 to the 0, 2 to the first, 2 to the second, 2 to the third, 2 to the fourth, 2 to the fifth, 2 to the sixth. And you don't want to go to a place value that's above your number. So 2 to the 6th power is 64. 2 to the 5th power is 32. And you just you got all your place values here. But then you have to identify, are you going to put a 0 or a 1 in each of your digits? If it's base 2, you can't have anything but a 0 or a 1 in your place value. If you put a 1 in there, then 1 times 64 will add to your total. We want that. But if we put in a 1 for the 32, we don't want that, because that would be add 32 to our total. We'd be above the number. But you just keep adding zeros or 1 in these blanks until you get a total that adds up to your base 10 number. But that's the idea behind it.
Which would be the 73, right?
Right. Yeah. You want 1 times each of these numbers. If you put a 0 in there, nothing will add to your total.
Okay.
So you just kind of keep adding zeros, and if you can add to the total and not go over, you want to do it.
Okay.
If you want to add 32, you'll go over. Now you don't want to add 16, you'll go over, but you can add 8. So you put a 1 there, because if you add 8 to your total, now you're at 72. You kind of have to keep track of your total as it gets bigger.
And so therefore the rest of those would be zeros.
Except the last one would be a 1, because you got to add 1 to get the 73. Yeah, so this is
Okay, I get it.
right here.
Okay, thank you so much. That was like the most difficult thing.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, the next problem is, and we already did, we did this one, okay. FICA taxes. So this says, if you are not self-employed and earn $118,000, what are your FICA taxes? Let's go to the tax table again on our sheet for the FICA taxes. And so here's the FICA taxes right here. They're going off of the 2016 FICA rates. This person is not self-employed, so they're at the employee rate. And so they're taxed at 7.65% on the first 118,500 of income. This person is basically at 118,000. They're not above that first category of a limit for that particular percentage. So their whole income of 118,000 is going to be taxed at 7.65%. So we're going to go back to our screen for the problem we're doing. So you just take 118,000, multiply by the 7.65%, which is going to be written as a decimal. That's 0.0765. And when we multiply that out, we get the FICA taxes earned. What did you all get that? They get it?
I'm working it now.
Yeah, if you want to put it in the chat, that would be great. Thank you. So it's 906525, 9065.25. So it's basically going to be $9,065.25. So if you I'm just checking, and that's exactly right. All right, any questions? I think that I didn't get exactly the same number. But it's not, I don't think it's off by much. It's actually, I got 9027.
I did too.
Oh, is that what you got?
I did too, yeah, but I couldn't type it in the chat quick enough.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's actually this number, 9027. That's exactly what it is. All right, any questions there?
You're right, Professor Schmitz. I gave you the right.
Yeah, no, it happens, typos and things like that, so. Any other questions? All right, go to the next problem. So now we're converting on Roman numerals. So we got to know what all of our numerals are. We're going to convert from a Roman numeral to a Hindu Arabic numeral. So let's go through our Roman numeral symbols. I think it's on the formula sheet. Let me see. I don't know if they have it on here. They don't, looks like. You just kind of have to memorize those, but you do have the Egyptian. Those are harder to memorize than the Romans, but so let's go through this. I has a value of 1. V has a value of 5. X has a value of 10. L has a value of 50. C has a value of 100. D has a value of 500. M has a value of 1,000. Now, if you want more than 3,000, you got to put some type of line over something. So what do we have first here? Let's keep a total here. We got 6. We got a VI, which is 6, but it's got a line over it. What's the value of that? That's 6,000. That's going to add to our total. Now you kind of have to read this left to right. Now, if any smaller value numerals precede a larger value numeral, then you have to subtract from you subtract the smaller from the larger. So what do we have here? We have a C, which has a value of 100, preceding a D, which has a value of 500. So we want to take 500 and subtract off 100 because the 100 is preceding the 500 and it subtracts from it. So that's going to be 400 that gets added to our total off of CD. Now, after D, we have L, which represents 50. Okay, and so then we'll just keep going. X, X, V, there's nothing where we have to subtract there. That's all things that are adding. So basically now the 2 X's are going to get added. That's going to be 20. The V is going to get added. That's going to be 5 because we're not having any more situations other than the C before the D where we have to subtract. It's all addition. It's kind of all addition unless you look and spot a smaller numeral preceding a larger numeral. But other than that, you just add everything up. And so when we add all this up, we end up with 6,475 as the Roman numeral there, or the Hindu Arabic numeral that represents that Roman numeral. So, all right, any questions? And just as a reminder, we went the other direction in part 1 yesterday. We went from the Hindu Arabic numeral to the Roman numeral yesterday. So, all right, anybody have any questions? Okay. The next problem is a tax, looks like it's a tax problem. Now this is not going all the way through. This is calculating Megan's adjusted gross income only, not having even get to taxable income. So you got to know what the adjusted gross income is. You've got to find the gross income first. The gross income is the wages plus any interest earned. That's going to be $32,000 plus the $200 in interest that's earned. And that's $32,200 for that. And that's the gross income. Now, the adjusted gross income, you just have to subtract off the adjustments. Well, what are the adjustments here? Anybody see it?
The 1,200.
That's right. Any contribution to an IRA is a part of an adjustment. So we're going to take 32,200 and subtract off 1,200, and that's going to give us 31,000 as the result there. And so there's our adjusted gross income there. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. This one is an average daily balance problem. This one's going to require a big table to make, because basically what we're going to do is find the average daily balance for the month of May. May has 31 days, round to the nearest cent. We got the previous balance and then the transaction amounts for each of them. So basically we've got a table. We're going to make a table with 3 columns. We need to figure out our balance in each of those. So we got a balance column. We got a number of days column. We got a total column. Now, what was the starting balance here? It was 12,000 or 1,220. That's the previous balance. That was on the billing date of May 1st. Now, how long did it stay at that balance before a transaction was made? Well, there was May 1st and May 2nd, but on May 3rd, there was a change in the balance. So just 2 days, it was basically a balance of 1,220. Now we make another row, because on May 3rd, there was a payment of a $230 credit. Now, a credit will take away from your balance. It won't add money to your balance. You're being credited because you don't want to owe as much. So you don't owe as much when you get credited to your account. So that's going to basically subtract 230 from 1,220. And that's going to be 990. Now the question is, how long was the balance 990? Well, May 3rd, May 4th, May 5th, 6th, and 7th. On the 8th, there was a change in the balance on May 8th. So it was only 5 days that it was 990. But then we make another row. There's another change in the balance on May 8th, $45 charge for groceries. So that's basically going to add to the balance because it's a charge. So if you take 990 and you add 445, you end up with 1,035. Now let me test your understanding. How many days would the balance have been 1,035? It started on May 8th. So how many days would it have stayed that balance? Anyone?
Would it be 4 days? You said from the 8th to the 12th?
Absolutely. And it's not necessarily just a subtraction. I just more count off my fingers, because at the end of the month, it's a little bit different. So I don't try to do it all like that. But May 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, you don't count the 12th because it changed on the 12th. So it's not actually staying. That's when the change was made. So it's actually 4 days. It's just the subtraction doesn't work at the end of the month, and I'll show you why, because you're going to include the last day of the month. at the end of the month. So I just count off my fingers or in my head, count out loud kind of, but we go to the next row. And now there was on May 12th, there was a charge for groceries of $70. So what's that going to make the balance now? It's like it would be 1105. And that, how many days was it? 1105. If it started on May 12th, but went up to changed on May 18th.
Is it 6 days?
6 days, yeah. Then on May 18th, there's a medical charge for 110. So you have a 1105, which adds, and then you add 110 to the balance, which gives you 1215. And so that's going to be the balance from May 18th all the way to the end of the month. Now let's count how many days that is, because there's 31 days in May. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, that's 10, 28, 29, 30, that's 14, or 30, 31, that's 14. So if you would have just done 31, May 31st, and subtracted 18, May 18th, you'd have gotten 13, but you actually have to include the 18th at the beginning and the 30 at the end, because there's not going to be any more changes once the month ends. So you have to include the last day of the month. Whereas if there was a change on May 31st, then you'd have to do something, but there's not any changes from May 18th to the end of the month. So that's 14 days there. And now we have to take our balance and multiply it by the number of days that the balance was that value. So that's where this last column comes in. So we'll go ahead and do that. So the first row is 1220 times 2, that's 2440. The second one is 990 times 5, that's 4950. Then you have 1035 times 4. That's 4140. Then you have 1105 times 6. That's 6630. Then you have 1215 times 14. And that's 17010. Now we have to add all those numbers up, and that'll be our total that we get, that we then divide by 31, which is the number of days. So let's see what we get in that last column total. So I actually got 35,170. That's the total that you get when you add up the last column. And that's going to end up dividing by the number of days in the month, which is 31. So we'll do that on the calculator. And we actually end up with $1134.52, $1,134.52. And that's our total of that average daily balance there. All right, any questions? The next one is a Florida car insurance problem. What type of car insurance is required in the state of Florida? Assume that the vehicle has at least 4 wheels. Does anybody know that? Did they go over that in class?
Yes.
What would
Yes.
it be? Anybody know it?
Is this what, and that the PIP insurance?
Right, personal injury protection. How much?
10,000?
10,000, right? What's the P?
I didn't hear what you said.
I think it's PDL. Is it PDL?
I think it is.
Property damage liability.
Yes, yes.
Basically the other one. and that's 10,000. And so those are the requirements that's required. It's not all that the person could have, but it's what's required for car insurance. All right, any questions there? Okay. And the next one is another tax problem. Now this one is I'm gonna test your understanding on this one. I'm gonna see if you all can do this with me. Find the gross income for a person earning 66,000 in wages. The person received 800 in interest from savings and contributed 2,500 to an IRA. What we're looking for is the gross income. So what would we need to do here? Anyone?
Add up all the income.
Right, we add up all the income. So we take 66,000 and we add the 800. That's 66,800. Do we do anything else?
Yeah, we have to subtract the 2,500 because she contributed. Right?
But here, actually, this is what I'm gonna emphasize here. See, if they were asking for the adjusted gross income, that's what we would do.
Oh, okay.
So if they wanted the adjusted gross income, we'd want to subtract the 2,500. But we don't want to do that because they just
No.
need gross income.
Right.
Gross
So that's,
is before you've ever subtracted from the IRA. So that's all, that would be our answer. It's kind of a trick question there.
okay, just got to be careful reading. Thank you.
Right, yeah, just knowing the vocabulary on the terms, and because there's different definitions, like there's the gross income, there's the adjusted gross income, taxable income, and so forth. So this one's just wanting the gross income. All right, any questions there? And then we have a car payment problem. So this says, suppose you decide to buy a car for $37,925, including taxes and license fees. You've saved $12,000 for a down payment and get a 5-year loan at 6.58%. Find the monthly payment and the total interest for the loan. So the first thing is you have the price of the car, $37,925, and that's not exactly what the person's borrowing as a loan, though, because the down payment is $1,200. That's actually being taken away from how much is going to be borrowed because it's paid up front. And so if you subtract off 1,000, you get 25,925 as the amount of the loan. But then you have to find out the monthly payment, and there's an annuity formula. If you remember from Unit 2 or Test 2, you had the mortgage formula. The car payment formula is the same as the mortgage. It's the present value of an annuity equals the payment times bracket 1 minus parentheses 1 plus r over n to the negative nt power close parentheses over r over n in parentheses. It's the same formula that you'd use for the mortgage, the present value of an annuity, but in this case we have our PV to be $25,925. The payment is unknown. Bracket 1 minus parentheses 1 plus. Now the interest rate that they give us is 6.58%, which is needs to be written as a decimal. That'd be 0.0658 over, and this is monthly, so this is 12 for the n raised to the negative 12 for n times 5-year loan. That would be 5 for t. Close the bracket over parentheses R, which is 0.0658 over N, which is 12. And then this is basically the setup. And then it's the same idea on the calculator as you would for the mortgage. You put all this whole side in, get that, and then you take the X to the negative first power button and you multiply it by 25,925. So I'll let you all try to do that, and let's see if we can calculate what the monthly payment would be. And I'll go ahead and do it on my calculator. What we got in the chat. Close. It's a little off. Let me see. Oh, I think I know what might have happened. Let me see if I can try something. I'm just checking something. That's not what happened. Again, but that's what Latricia put that in the chat. That's exactly what it should have been. It should have been 508.22. That's the correct answer. So you should have, you just have to put the parentheses where they go. You want to put the whole top or numerator and then divide by the denominator in parentheses, and then you put the X. Once you get all that on the right side, you press the X to the negative first power button and then multiply it by the left side of the equation, which is 25,925. But this is what you should have gotten right here. Now that's the monthly payment. That answers the first part of the question. And the total interest for the loan would actually be, you have to determine what's the total amount of the payments that the person made, because the person made $508.22 payments. This was a 5-year loan, so they made those payments for 5 years. And since it's monthly payments, they made those payments 12 times a year. So you multiply by 5 and multiply by 12, and then the monthly payment there, which is 508.22, and we'll see what we get when we multiply that out, because that's the total of all the payments that the person made. And I got $30,493.20 to be the total payments. And the total payments doesn't tell you the amount of interest. It tells you how much was paid by the person who borrowed the money. But they actually owed, when they took out the loan, they owed $25,925. So the difference between those two numbers is the amount of interest that was owed on the loan. So if you take 30,493.20 and you subtract off 25,925, you actually get 4568.20, and that's actually how much interest was paid. That's the interest that's owed. So it's kind of a two-part problem, but you have to find the monthly payment before you can get the amount of interest. So, all right, anybody have any questions? Well, that's pretty much all the problems that we have for the review. It was kind of a long practice test, but it was in 2 parts. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at the recording from yesterday if you weren't here. But the total of all of it is basically the practice test for test 3. And so anyway, anyone have any questions? All right, I'll go ahead.
Well, thank you, Professor Noah.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I hope everyone does well on it. Let me go ahead and stop the recording, but I thank everyone for coming. And I hope you do well on it. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll have another test review workshop scheduled for test 4 when it comes up. Go ahead and stop the recording.